Thank you so much, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Union Minister of Railways and Coal, for joining us on ET Now and India Development Debate Director. Appreciate you taking the time and joining us from Ahmedabad. Mr. Goyal, we have read the columns, we've heard the press conferences, seen the videos, seen the clips as well that's been put out. We've done all of that. But 1 year hence, Mr. Goyal, would you concede that demonetization has probably not achieved the objectives that it was set out to achieve? Many people now say that there have been a lot of post-facto justifications for demonetization, but has this achieved the objectives that it set out to achieve? Because people say the goalposts have shifted over the last 1 year. Mr. Goyal.
Well, I think it's a measure of their ignorance that they say that. Demonetization has been one of the most successful decisions of this government. It has given a clear message to both Indians and the world at large that India is going to be an honest economy, governments in India are going to be honest, and business in India is going to be run honestly. To my mind, demonetization has given an identity, a name and address to all that cash which was in the marketplace. You may be aware that Reserve Bank has already said at that point of time that nearly 6 lakh crores of high value currency had never been circulated in the economy, was not coming back into the banking system at all, based on the serial numbers. All of that now has come into the bank, so we have a trace. That trace will not only help us to check what is the tax evaded money out of this 15-16 lakh crores, but will also open up a Pandora's box for the past, which is evident with 2 lakh odd companies, shell companies being deregistered.
All right, fair point indeed. I'm going to discuss some of those issues in more detail just from now, but I want to get one elephant out of the room really. Former Finance Minister Padayappan Chidambaram, in an interview to us right here at ET Now, has put the cost of demonetization at 2.25 lakh crore rupees. Now that is the opposition's view. I'm presuming that will be a view that you will not agree with. But various estimates do put the cost of demonetization between 1 to 2 lakh crore rupees, essentially speaking. Has the government ascertained what the cost of demonetization has been, sir?
Well, I don't think there's any cost to demonetization. There's only benefits of demonetization. After all, the fact that India is an honest and a country where it's easy to do business honestly is such a big value add, which can attract so much more investment, both domestic and international. We never had $60 billion of FDI flowing into India in the past, did we? We never had this beeline to come and work in India, to bring new technologies to India in the past, did we? Wasn't there a general sense of, oh, sab chalta hai, this is how this country works, which is changing today when more and more people want to engage with the formal economy. After all, if 50 lakh workers now have a bank account in which honest minimum wages are paid, if 1 crore 3 lakh persons are newly registered in Provident Fund and their families get social security, if 1 crore 30 lakh people are now registered with the Employee State Insurance Corporation, giving nearly 5-6 crore people free healthcare benefits, I think all of these are intangible and huge benefits which this nation can never ever have imagined happen in a short period of time.
That's the point, isn't it?
The GST rollout would not have been successful but for this confidence and sense that now we have to go legit, we have to work in an honest environment.
Right. That's the point. Some of the benefits are intangible, whereas the cost which has been front-loaded is tangible and which can be ascertained. But, let's talk about the benefits that you spoke about as well, and that has been articulated over the last few weeks and months by the government. Again, critics claim that many of these benefits, whether it was a crackdown on black money, the addition in the taxpayer base, the flip to digital payments, the formalization of the economy, all of these benefits may have been achieved by other specific measures without having caused a disruption and inconvenience to a large majority of the people and without having an impact on growth, as we saw the last quarter reading. Would you agree that these objectives could have been achieved by other measures as well?
Well, sir, from 2004 to 2014, you had a Congress government, and there are enough and more in the market which shows that it was a government headed by a so-called Prime Minister, but controlled by the Gandhi family. Now that government doesn't have 2 things or 4 things to show where they've cracked down on black money or tried to move India into an honest sphere. It has been a government of 10 years of scandals and scams. Every few months there used to be a new scandal emerging. They did not leave the material below the ground, on the ground, in the sky or in the space. So you had Colgate, you had 2G Spectrum, Commonwealth, Devas Antrix, Augusta Westland, and I could go on and on till the cows come home about the number of scandals that the Congress government was embroiled in. Here is a government that is willing to change the narrative in India. Here is a government which is willing to bite the bullet. Here is a government which is willing to bring in electoral reforms. Here is a government which has cleaned out the banking system, which was suffering for years of political interference, particularly between 2007 and 12-13, when congressmen and bureaucrats from Delhi used to micromanage bank lending in the public sector banks. I think all of these portend a change which this country was yearning for. The very fact that after the resounding victory of Prime Minister Modi in 2014, you have seen similar victories across the nation, so that from 6 state governments, BJP and its allies today have 18 state governments. It's a great testimony to the support and the blessings of the people of India to all these measures, cracking down on black money, putting an end to corruption, putting an end to the misgovernance that the UP and Congress and the Gandhis were identified with.
Mr. Goyal, without getting into the politics of this, I'm going to talk about the opposition's claims. Actually, let's forget about the opposition's claims. Let's forget about what happened in the 10 years of Congress's rule. But the CMIE
no, why should you forget that,
Supriya?
The people have not forgotten it, and the people have neither forgiven the Congress for it.
On account of demonetization alone. Now, you and I both know that the pace of job creation is worrying, not just for us journalists, but I'm presuming for policy makers like yourselves also. Did the government perhaps, and you have to be candid with me, did the government perhaps underestimate the collateral damage on that count alone?
Have you ever found me anything but candid in any of your interviews?
No, I haven't.
But having said that,
which is why I ask you.
I think very clearly the nature of jobs is changing not only in India but worldwide. As the country moves towards more and more of formal engagement, obviously you're going to see good numbers coming in of people who have a new working opportunity, a better quality of life. But gone are the days when employment was created by large power plants or large steel plants or governments alone. When we look at these statistics, we fail to realize that a 4,000 megawatt coal-based power plant would possibly give 5,000-6,000 people an engagement which should be reflected in these numbers. But that same amount of electricity, if that was to be generated through the new distributed renewable forms of energy, you're looking at 10, 12, 15 times the number of people. But not reflected in the statistics alone. People having franchises, people manufacturing this equipment through distributed manufacturing units, people setting this up across the country, people working to make solar pumps for the farmers, people putting rooftop solar, small windmills being set up across the country. Look at the number of channels we have today. We have a plethora of channels. In the press conference today, we had 40 cameras. You had a number of print journalists. Now, all these people, your backroom boys, your cameraman, your guest coordinator, people who are studying and researching in your studios, they all don't get captured in these job and employment numbers. But that is where the true Indian evolution is happening. And worldwide, you had Bill Gates, you had Tharman Shanmuganathan, Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore, we had Michael Porter, the guru of competitiveness from Harvard. All of them also talking about how nature of work and employment in the world is changing. India is engaging now with the world with the best of technologies, modern ways of doing business, and I think we are seeing that same evolution. Mudra Yojana alone has given out 9 crore loans worth 3.5 lakh crores, all of which is money replacing money lenders' expensive money and helping people stand on their own feet and earn an honest day's living.
Well, we are pleased to note that you at least understand the sort of effort that goes behind a newsroom and a television channel, from the cameraman to all of that. So that's something that we clearly take on board. But Mr. Goyal, another specific charge is on
But
terror financing.
does that number get
of course,
reflected in any job
come down
numbers?
significantly post
Do you think that gets reflected in the job numbers?
Blog yesterday indicated that incidents of stone pelting have reduced in the valley. But where is the data to suggest that terror financing as a whole has come down? Anecdotal, incidents clearly will not add up to that. If you were to make this claim that terror financing has come down, because the opposition, on the contrary, claims that infiltration has actually gone up in the valley. More terror, more sort of soldiers have lost their lives as well. So how do we read the data on the impact of demonetization as far as terror financing is concerned?
Well, it's very logical. The very fact that there's fake currency being printed in our neighboring countries and being used for terror financing was something we were all familiar with. The fact that any currency printed of 500 and 1,000 now is become redundant, it has no value for the terrorists. It doesn't need too much of understanding to know that all those terrorists are now stuck without fake currency. So I think that's been one of the biggest impacts. And infiltration is being countered. That is the difference. I don't think there's been more infiltration. Now we are catching them, we are eliminating them. That is the difference which we didn't have in the past, which is making India a much more safer and secure country.
I think most people will say we should never compromise on our safety, and if it has indeed resulted in it, then kudos to you. If it hasn't, then we perhaps need to do a little more. But sir, while demonetization has indeed resulted in one very positive collateral, which is it has widened the tax base. 55 lakh new taxpayers by 5th August 2017. I think that's an area you should be congratulated on. But the Chief Economic Advisor's economic survey reveals that a lot of those 55 lakh new taxpayers are actually just above the threshold of 2.5 lakh exempted limit at 2.7 lakh really. Given that, do you believe we are making too much of the widened tax base? Because this obviously is not commensurating with tax collections just yet.
Well, Supriya, it's part of the process, the evolution that's happening. The fact that they've come into the formal economy and now their transactions will get reported. Earlier, of course, there was also a fear that if we start reporting our full transactions, will there be a problem of the past? Now the Honorable Prime Minister has also categorically stated that those who turn legitimate and want to engage with the honest economy, we will not bother about the past. We'll allow them to work in the new way of working, the honest way of working. So to my mind, the very fact that this is beginning to happen, people are coming into the formal economy. Wherever I go, yesterday I was in Surat, every association, diamond, textiles, weaving, yarn, unanimously said we welcome GST. We need a few amendments, a few improvements on process and procedure, which I'm sure tomorrow, day after, the GST Council will take on board as many of the things as are already before it. Maybe it will need 3-4 more meetings to sort out the procedural and policy aspects. After all, a transition of this sort, in comprising 40 taxes submerging into one, has never happened in the history of the world before. It's the single largest transformational reform embarked anywhere in the world. So to my mind, this process is a continuing process, even if they may be just above the threshold. As they formalize their way of working and engagement with the tax authorities, I'm sure we'll see a much larger tax collection. Today morning I was reading the direct taxes have also gone up very well in the first few months.
Right. Mr. Goyal, just to place on record on GST, I think we have sort of wholeheartedly, unambiguously supported every effort of the government and the corrections that they've taken as well, which are understandable. Much of the opposition, even by the trader community, we believe is probably unwarranted. So just do want to place that on record. But Mr. Goyal, what is evident from this conversation is that while the costs of demonetization have been front-loaded, as is visible, the benefits, whatever they may be, are intangible right now. When do you see them becoming tangible so that we can really do a fair cost-benefit analysis on whether it was worth it or not? When do you think the benefits of demonetization will accrue, will become more tangible for people to feel and then make an assessment on the cost-benefits?
First of all, even the cost is an intangible cost. I don't understand how these numbers, whatever the number anybody may hawk, have been worked out. There's no empirical evidence to suggest how this cost has been worked out, which you are claiming some opposition leaders have said. You can throw any number. I mean, it doesn't have any sanctity unless it's backed by hard calculation and evidence. Point one. Point two, whereas the benefits are all tangible. Now, after all, when I tell you that there are 17.73 lakh cases, PAN numbers, which are under scrutiny, and cash deposits of 3.68 lakh crore under investigation because of the pattern being out of sync with their past history. It's a tangible number which is being worked on. 2 lakh plus shell companies have been identified and deregistered. It's a clear signal that now those Hawala operators, those shell companies, money laundering is a thing of the past. The very fact that in the high value denomination currency, you've seen a huge reduction. Earlier, 86% of the currency used to be high value and it was growing 12 to 14% every year. Now, post full remonetization, the high value currency has significantly dropped. It's a great achievement. So I think I can keep giving you statistic after statistic. I talked about the workers getting minimum wages. We increased minimum wages by 42%. It's a tangible benefit which improves the quality of life of workmen in this country. The fact that 5-6 crore more people will get free healthcare is a huge tangible benefit for the future of India. So I think it's not difficult to put a value to all these initiatives. The fact that we've been successful in changing the image of India, due to which you have $60 billion flowing in last year as FDI, is itself an absolutely tangible benefit. The fact that Japan trusts India to give you nearly 88,000 crores at 0.1% for 50 years. We've never had a 50-year 0.1% loan before. So all of these are demonstrations of tangible benefits of a nation turning honest.
Okay. I will not deny you the tangible and the intangible benefits that you've outlined for me, but you're also a politician and a hardcore politician at that. I will ask you, I mean, these are two quick last questions then. Given the political dividend that the BJP did reap out of demonetization, I mean, look at the kind of political mandate you got in Uttar Pradesh. Will you agree with me when I say that the political dividend or the political gains out of the demonetization far outweighed even the economic gains that you outlined?
First of all, I don't agree that there's been any economic flip side or cost, the way it's being made out to be by some opposition politicians. So let's keep that aside. As far as the political dividend is concerned, to my mind, it's incidental. And I'd like to share with you my own experience working with Prime Minister Modi in his cabinet. There have been more than one occasion when people have kind of objected to a decision being taken, saying that this will have a negative impact on a possible election happening in the near future, and can we not defer a decision? But Prime Minister Modi has been steadfast in his approach. He would always ask, is this in national interest? Is it in the interest of the poor of India? If it is so, then the decision will be taken now, right away. We will not calculate political dividends or loss while taking a decision in national interest. Even when we took the decision of note ban, demonetization, I suspect most people at that point of time thought it will cause us very heavily in the UP and Uttarakhand elections. Most people would have advised against doing it if he had sought to talk to the people. But he has been clear, I have to do good for this country. I have to do good for the poor of this country, for the farmers of this country, for the youth of this country, for that section of society which has remained socially deprived for years and years. And I think for him, national interest prevails over any other political interest.
Fair enough. Mr. Goyal, one last question, but before that, I do want to sort of say, why are we saying the cost and how has that been arrived at? I'm not talking about the 2.2 lakh crore figure that the opposition is touting, but the rest, 1.5 lakhs is the cost of printing the notes, the reduced dividend from the RBI on account of demonetization. It's about 35,000 crores, the reduced dividend from the RBI this year. And of course, the notional value of the loss in GDP, economists believe 0.5% of a knock we took. That's how this 1.5 lakh crore. But let's leave that aside, Mr. Goyal. Last question to you. And
1 minute.
Frankly,
1 year
all
hence,
three. It's no point asking if you would do it because I know you will say yes, you would. But how would you have done this differently? Would the government have considered a wider set of people? Would the government have, convinced the central bank before embarking on this measure? Would the government have reached out to its chief economic advisor, panel of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council? What would the government have done differently, assuming it had gone ahead with demonetization?
First of all, your calculation of that 1 lakh crores is also completely erroneous. Let me explain that. The cost of printing notes is a cost that happens every few years when you change the design, particularly to fight against counterfeiting currency. And ideally, the biggest advantage is that now all fake currency or counterfeit currency, if any, which was there or which may have been printed in the future, is now history. So I think that itself is a big benefit which takes care of any cost of printing, and in any case it's not as large as it's being made out to be. Second, the dividend of RBI has reduced because interest rates have significantly fallen. I think you are missing a major point. The fact that rupee is stable and not depreciating. So the money market operations of the RBI to stabilize prices, to stabilize interest rates, to stabilize fluctuations in foreign currency is largely responsible for the reduced dividend. I'm sure an economic channel like yours will be able to calculate and appreciate that far easier than our friends from the opposition. Also, RBI has about 8.5 lakh crores of free reserves. That free reserve in an inflationary condition prevailing during the UPA or earlier years was fetching a far larger return on the investment. The cash reserve ratio was getting a far larger return. All of that has fallen because we want a low interest regime in which business and industry can flourish and economic growth can be faster, jobs can be created faster. So I think your calculations are subject to a lot of question marks. I'm not really convinced at your calculations. And the notional loss to GDP is a temporary loss. A huge transformational initiative like GST is bound to create a certain transitional uncertainty, which we were well prepared for, and the long-term benefits far outweigh any cost. As regards doing it differently, absolutely no. The secrecy behind it was the critical element to be able to really give that message of attacking corruption and black money. Too much of consultation, too many people in the know, too much of discussion and debate would have killed the secrecy and would have made the entire process irrelevant and redundant.
All right, you wouldn't do it any differently. I think a lot of Indians will hope you never do it again. But on that note, I think you've defended your position on
please correct your figures of loss
I
which you are
believe you may have been able
creating.
to convince. We've put it on record, and I think the people of India should be judging this. But thank you very, very much, Mr. Goyal, for sparing time and speaking to us on a day as big as this, as you mark the Anti-Black Money Day on the first anniversary of demonetization. We really appreciate you being with us right here on ET Now.
Thank you for being with us, sir.